Coming to you from the U.S. and streaming all over the world, this is Shotgun Sports USA. Get accurate, reliable information in every single episode, with interviews from the best shooters in the game, the best gun clubs across the globe, and industry-leading companies that revolutionize the sport. Be sure to check us out on social media and online at shotgunsportsusa.com. Shotgun Sports USA is powered by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend, and brought to you by Cole Gunsmithing, Castellani USA, Chromatic Traps, Clay Target Vision, Sound Gear Phantom, and Clay Shooter Supply. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to 2023. It's a new year, it's a new season, and we're looking forward to it. On this episode, we're going to continue talking about target difficulty at tournaments. We're going to find out how these guys feel about setting targets for big tournaments versus setting targets for local fun shoots, and how to determine how difficult they should be. Should they get easier? Should they stay the same? Well, we're going to find out their opinions right now. Please welcome to the show, Mike Luongo and Joe Scull. Everybody listening's probably heard of these two guys. Mike is at Rocky Creek Sporting Clay. He's been setting targets a long time. And Joe, where is your club at? Because I've never been to it.
New Jersey, Cedar Creek Sporting Clay.
Okay.
I'm about 40 minutes from M&M.
And everybody's heard of Joe Scull setting targets. He does it all over the place, including nationals, all over the Southeast. I mean, just everywhere in the United States. So we've got these two guys on here tonight. We're going to talk about target setting and the evolution of how targets became the way they are today and what people think about them in the eyes of target setters. Mike, let's start with you. Like I said, you've been setting targets for a while now. Tell me how long you've been doing it and kind of how you've seen it evolve since you've been doing it.
Yeah, since 2004, I just started doing it, at our local club, Pintail Point. That's where I met Joe, Anthony, all those guys in that same area, the Northeast. And, I've seen it evolve in a wild way for simple facts of what trap machines can do, right? Back then, we didn't have these tilt bases, more straight lines, not the versatility. And now these traps are amazing. They can throw all sorts of angles and a lot more spring. I mean, when I first started pulling targets as a trapper, they were mostly hand traps. They'd come off and then die out. They couldn't do much.
What about you, Joe? You've been doing it longer than that. I think you started back in the early 40s. Tell me how it's evolved with you and kind of where you're at with it now, where you see it going.
When I got the club in 94, everything was handsets at that point, at this club, at my club I have now. And I had like 15 trappers that would go around with the group and throw. But you were limited to what you could really do. And if you throw any targets over 30 yards, they take your head off. Shooters like, that's impossible. You can't hit them targets. They're too hard. We had a bunch of that. And back then, most machines threw targets flat. Okay. These guys nowadays, they say, oh, you can't see much of it. It's edgy. It's this. If they shot back in the 90s, they'd know what edgy targets were. Yeah. We shot targets on edge most of the time. And then we started figuring out how to take them hand traps and hold the target on there and put a block under a wheel or kick it under a little bit so we could get a little bit of dome on them, just to throw different stuff like that. But in the past 30 years, it's evolved so much as far as what machines can do. Like Mike was saying, we can do all types of different angles and height and speeds and transitions of targets and that's the only way to nowadays beat shooters. It's not about beating the big guys. It's not about beating up the little guys. It's about setting stuff that throws them out of pace.
Yeah.
as long as the biggest thing with target setting is they need time to shoot them and they need to be able to see them. And if you do that 99% of the time and you keep them inside 40 yards, there's nothing anybody should really complain about.
All right, kind of go into that a little bit. You're talking about they need time to see them. I know what you mean by that, but explain that and then explain what you're talking about as far as the pace and then how you see them. I mean, I'm sure that different backgrounds call for different targets to be able to be seen well, if that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And it all depends on the range, the terrain, the background. Everything depends on that. What color target you can throw. For example, at Nationals, at 90 that I threw on Station 8, I originally put it over on the right side, over by that tower. And I was worried about the sun in the afternoon. I said to Neil, I'm going back and look at that later in the day because we didn't have any bios. All we had was pitch targets, and they're real shiny. That pitch can be shiny. And sure enough, when I threw that target up, there was just a little, maybe for a half a second, you couldn't see it good. It had that glassy look. And for what we were trying to do, we were making the course difficult to start with. We didn't need something that was difficult and you couldn't see it.
Right.
So I took that trap and I moved it to the other side and I threw the orange side. Even if that was a black target on the other side, I'd had the same problem in the morning because it's a pitch target. You take a bio target, they're not glassy like that. They absorb that shine and you can see them the whole time. So that makes a big difference. If you got bios, I could have left that target over there. It doesn't have that glassy shine on it. That sun doesn't reflect off of it like that. It's flat. It's like flat black versus a glossy black.
Yeah.
And the glossy part, that sun, you'll get in trouble with a glossy target in the sun. If the sun shines directly on it, it'll disappear for just a small time. And what we were trying to do there with the level of target setting we were doing, we didn't need any issues like that. So you got to be really careful on that. I like to go through at 8 o'clock in the morning, check the targets. I want to check them at 10. I want to check them at 12. I want to check them at 2. I want to check them at 4. And I want to check them at 5:30 because that's the time people are out there shooting it. And you can't have it where they see it good all day, except for the last flight. The last 3 squads finishing on Station 4, they can't see the target right. That's just not fair.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the game.
Now talk about the time to shoot it. They have to have time to shoot it. And I'm assuming that you see this more and more with shooters of age. They take a little longer to shoot it.
Yeah, I've been to shoots. When I used to shoot a lot, I've been to shoots and you're there and you watch it. This is back in the days when, we were still learning how to set targets better than what, at that point. But you go there and you see, I've seen many a times where an old guy didn't even get the second barrel off at the other bird because there wasn't as much time as he needed. By the time he picked, and especially in a true pair, by the time he picked the birds up in order for him to shoot the target, the other bird was already on the ground. Whereas you get a younger guy, 20 years old, he picks the target up 20 yards sooner, breaks the target before the old guy even sees it, and then he goes on and breaks the other target. So you gotta play it in for all your level shooters.
Mike, running a club like you do, and Joe as well, you have people, members, just individuals coming out shooting all the time, I'm sure. How do you set courses at just your local clubs so that it makes everybody happy? I'm talking about while they're out there practicing and also at tournaments. How do you find that common ground where everybody's happy?
Yeah, well, that's a great subject. I have people ask me that all the time. I'm very lucky. At Rocky Creek, we have 3 courses. So like my Creek course, I keep that, very, very soft for people coming in and out of Charlotte, Columbia. And I want them to be like, I call them fence post targets. I want them to be able to hit them because, they half of them, this is their first time shooting. And if they're not having success, they're not coming back, right? So I want them to hit those. And then my middle course, the Oak, I beat those up a little bit, a little more distance, a little more speed, some specialty targets. Like my corporate course only has 2 rabbits on it. The rest are standards. I don't need to throw middies, 70s, all that on that. And then the Oak has a bunch of specialties. And that's kind of, I tell everybody, hey, you shot here, these, you're shooting in the mid 90s on the Creek, step up to the Oak. And then they're like, oh man, I only shot a 75. I said, yeah, but now you can, gear up from there. And then my field course, it is just massive, right? There's not a bad hole on that course. I've got a 60-foot JLG lift on it and an 80-foot Genie lift on it. And more than 50% of my course has specialties: rabbits, Batus, 90s, 70s, Shondells, you name it, 90 Shondells, 70 Shondells. It's set for the guys that want to go and compete at the US Open. I mean, it's set for the tournament level shooters. But what's neat, I'm seeing people now, like they look across the street and they see this big boom tower and they're like, we got to go try it. I'm like, Mike, how do you hit that thing? I'm like, just keep trying,
Yeah.
but I help them out, but they're trying different shots. So that's what I like to see, to not get anybody discouraged, but at least they're trying them. As far as tournaments, we can get into that more, but for a local shoot, I feel like my local shoots are a little bit harder than most people's local shoots, simply because it's purely my fault. I want to give 110% out there when I'm setting targets. I mean, I used to go to Joe Scull's local shoots, Anthony's, George Hopkins in my area. Man, those guys threw regional quality targets, now regional quality at local shoots. So kind of the way I was brought up, hey, I'm going to give these guys good stuff. Now, sometimes I overdo it. Joe's overdone it before. We've all made those mistakes, but I just try to throw them. I want to give them their money's worth. I don't want to give them all the targets. And, most of the guys that come to the club, they thank me, man, we wish we had these targets all the time. And then your newer shooters, oh man, they're a little tough, Mike. And, but the cool balance, and I try to share this with a lot of clubs. What we figured out here is, and Joe did this years ago, we have 2 courses. So you can shoot either course at any time. Joe kind of started this thing in New Jersey. It's kind of where I got the idea. So one course is like a lighter course. You purposely set it a little lighter. So if you get kids or guys that are just starting, I'm like, hey, don't try the main event. Don't try the field course. We call it the fun shoot. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a couple targets on it that'll test you, but most of them are hittable. And they shoot that. And then it's like, well, we drove 2 hours. Let's shoot the other course. And then they're like, wow, I shot 20 birds less on this one. I said, well, a lot tougher, but I feel like I have something for everybody. And I just think that's a fantastic idea for the NSCA or any club. If you have 2 courses and you're going to throw a monthly shoot, give them both courses and advertise it. Say, hey, one's going to get you just into tournament shooting and the other one's going to test your ability. And I mean, like I said, Joe did this years ago when I lived in Delaware. You'd shoot his woods course and, you kind of felt good. We always shot that first. And then you went to his other side and he goes, yeah, Mike, no, I just showed you how you still need to learn how to shoot, and that's what we do. And I'd go back, Joe, you're going to be there on a Wednesday. I need to come learn these targets. And I'd go around and shoot with him, just to learn what he was doing, try to get better,
I guess both of you coach. So I guess it's good to have that variety of targets at your club so that if you need to help somebody with something, they're there for them to shoot. We hear this talk all the time about targets are too hard at big tournaments. The regionals, the nationals, the open, they're all too hard, or not all, but a lot of them are too hard. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. Do you feel that what is seen now at the regionals, the big blasts, those big tournaments are over the top, or do you feel that they're on par for the tournament that they're being thrown at?
I feel as though we should have a different level when you get to US Open, regionals, nationals, world event. But I feel as though you have to balance it out enough that you're not pummeling the lower class shooters where they're walking out of 15 stations with 2s and 3s. You can't have that. I can set targets that don't look hard and make the big guy stumble and miss a target just because of transition, because they don't see something that I got the target doing. But we still need, like nationals, I would say 3 stations. You set 3 stations that are really set tougher, more quality into it, bigger birds and everything. And the rest of them, you can just mix them in and just have good targets, not ridiculous, just good targets that are in transition, doing this, doing that. They think they're easy, they're going to break them, and then they get in and they miss 2 of them. So at that point, they're not upset with what you did. They're upset that they shouldn't have missed those targets, and that makes a difference. If you can get the shooters to leave feeling as though they had a chance, the shooters aren't going to complain about it. Then you get a course that's set where they're coming off of 100 bird course shooting a 43 or a 57, they got something to complain about because it's just that hard. You got to remember one thing. We are in the entertainment business. It's not just about setting targets for 15 guys. And when we talk about 15 guys, we're only talking about them 15 guys at the regionals, US Open, and nationals in the world. All these other shoots, Mike's local shoots, my local shoots, Anthony's local shoots, we don't have 15 guys there that any of us are setting targets for. It's a handful. There's local guys that are usually going to win the shoot. So you can bring it in so that they shoot 97. If they shoot 97, the rest of the field is usually falls in place pretty good. So it's not a matter of us trying to beat the shooter up with difficult targets. We can do that just by the machines we have, by making that machine, it's going out and it looks like it's crossing, but just as they go to shoot it, it's turning a little bit or it's dropping and they don't read what the targets are really doing. And that's how I like to set my courses and let the shooter beat themselves.
Yeah.
We'll throw enough hard stuff in there at the same time to keep it balanced where it's entertaining for the big guy too.
Mike, what you got to say about that?
Yeah, so that's a subject. I've had this conversation with 300 people, right? And I feel that at a regional, a US Open, or a national championship, when you're trying to find out who's on Team USA, who's going to represent our country, and find out who's the best, the targets need to be buffed up. And I agree with Joe. You don't have to do it every station, but I can tell you, I personally went to a few shoots last year that were major shoots, and I personally was disappointed. And this isn't a knock to anybody, but you go to shoot, you're spending a lot of money, and I'm like, wow, we shoot local tournaments in South Carolina that are harder than this, right? Now, like I said, the local shoot, stuff like that, I don't care what they set. But, when you're at a major and you're expecting to do that, yeah, you're not setting them for those 15 guys, but you're setting them for them and everybody else. And I feel like if you're a target setter, you can do it, right? You can make everybody happy. You're never going to make everybody happy, right? But I feel that you can balance the field and give everybody their money's worth. I get guys like, if I have a D or a C class student, I tell them, hey, don't expect, you're going to the US Open, for example. Last year, thank goodness I warned them, right? Don't expect to be like what you shoot at your local shoot, man. Just be prepared and take it as a learning experience. Do the targets need to be over the top? Absolutely not. But are we going to find out who the best is? It's a competition at those. You know what I mean? We're seeing who the best of the best is. And even I tell everybody, man, if you're in D class and you shoot a 75 and you win, man, you shot a 75. That you were the best in your field. I remember when I was in D, C, B, that was my favorite time shooting because I was trying to earn punches and I'm competing against my friends. And, now it's like, oh, Mike, you got 20 punches at this shoot. What'd that get me? Nothing. It's just like you got punches, right? But I feel that at a major like that, world championship, like Joe said, I think we need to find out who the shooters are. And, you have to, I think they should just be upped. Do they need to be crazy? Absolutely not. But I think they need to be a few birds per class tougher for everybody to find out. And that's just my personal opinion. And I've talked to, like I said, a lot of people about this, and a lot of them feel the same way. Some guys are just there to have fun, and I want everybody to have fun. And then some people, very small percentage, are there to compete. Some people like the dinners, right? The make or break, the games, and the fellowship. But I feel like, good targets at a major would make us all not only learn more about shooting, we kind of see where we stand against the best, right? I like it's like, man, I just worked 3 months straight doing X, Y, Z. Where do I go up against Anthony Mattery, Zach Keenbaum, Wendell Cherry, man, if I can get close, I'm a happy guy, right? I don't expect that. That's not what I do every day. But if I'm like, man, I was close to Brandon Power, I beat him at this event, I'm tickled pink, right? But I feel like I have a better chance to do that because of the little practice I do if the targets are up a level versus down a level. Because, personally, and again, everybody has opinions, but I personally like to see the majors. I want everybody to get their money's worth in every way. food, door prizes, everything. But I do think the target should be up from the normal.
Talk about what an up target is, so to speak. Like, what is a harder target versus a target that, you're talking about putting 2 or 3 stations that may be a little harder. Are you talking about putting them on a tower? Or you talking about far targets? You talking about transitioning targets? What is it?
I mean, well, we'll use Joe for example here. Joe is awesome at just, he'll get you inside 40, right? You don't have to throw a 75-yard midi off a tower on edge. That's not a good target, in my opinion. You might take a target, for example, you've got a big teal out in front, say at 40 yards, and then, below your feet, say if you got a little terrain, Joe might run a bird down a hill against you. By the time you shoot the teal, you're so geared up, you shoot over the top of the second bird. That's personally how I like to set targets, to be honest with you. A lot of guys like to go, gimme. I'm going to kill them on all 4 targets here. No, I just want a nickel and dime. I'm going to grab you one per here, one there, one here. Yeah, and if you look at, that's what Joe does. He's never killed you on a stage. Mikey, what'd you shoot? 93. Why'd you miss 7? You got me 7 times. Singles, or I didn't pay attention. First pair, stuff like that. So that, and I heard a long time ago, I want, if George Digweed steps on my property, if I'm setting a course, if he's on the best day of his life, he should probably run it. Right. But I know if George is having a bad day and he's got the flu, he could probably still shoot 88. And I'm talking about the best. I want everybody to try to, at least have fun. But at the same token, you don't need to go far. But I mean, a hard target is probably a specialty, a target putting you out of your comfort zone, if that makes sense. Like when I'm teaching, I tell people, hey, that's a 20-yard trap shot. We know how to shoot those. Now you take that same 20-yard trap shot, put a little angle on it, tuck it in the corner, pop it out behind a bush. It's a little bit tougher. Stuff like that, I would say, would make a easy target hard, and you don't have to do a lot to get people to miss. You don't have to throw speed and distance. Off speed and distance is much harder, right? Joe will agree with that. If you throw some distance and back that spring down, that's hard for everybody.
Oh yeah, one sitting out there pops up behind the bush real slow and just hangs up in the air. You go ahead and mark me a 0 right there because I'm going to miss it every time.
I'll tell you, Justin, a good story. We had the Pennsylvania State shoot, and this guy was, and Joe knows him very well, Chuck Frazier. He was a legend, right? Target setter, working machine. And we were working a Pennsylvania State shoot together at a place called Thunder Ridge. And the terrain was so good. Our joke was, if you took we did not have a target outside of 30 because the terrain was that good. If you would have took those same targets and put them in a Walmart parking lot, people probably would have shot 200 straight. But because the terrain was so crazy, like they couldn't score. I mean, I took a 90 on the top of this hillside and I put a bungee cord down, took a piece of rebar, put it through the back of the trap so it wouldn't fall up the hill. And we just let it float down. You shot at 15 yards. Nobody ran the station. They were shooting way under it. It was so slow, right? And target was 15 yards. They're shaking their head. They're giving me looks. One guy comes out throwing his shells at me, laughing, joking away, and they just can't hit it. So, terrain helps. There's a lot of things that can make a target hard that necessarily, could be inside 30, inside 40.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool of what you the target setters can do to make people miss. It's close stuff like that, what you're talking about. I know that, Joe, you set the red course at Jack Links last year. So you go shoot this big blue course over there that Doug shot. They were set, and there's targets going everywhere. And I go shoot it, and I thought I shot it decent for me. And I'm like, I can't wait till I go shoot Joe's course. At least I know I'll shoot it good. Hell, I didn't shoot it as good as I did Doug's, and it was closer. I'm thinking, what's going on?
Well, here's the deal with that. In the past 3 years, I look at the scores of the top shooters, top 10 scores of Doug's course and my course, and he always has higher scores than mine does on the same guys. Zach Kimbon told me, he says, I lost Jack Link down there on station 17, that little blooper targets I had in there. He missed stuff like that, little things like that, just get you out of transition. And the other thing with that is, when you put somebody in tighter quarters, you can't throw as big birds because you don't have space. Gun management is everything. If you start your gun off that line a little bit, by the time you correct it, it's too late and you miss a target. So that's a difference when you start setting targets that are in close. It's more about gun management. And if you make the mistake of starting your gun in the wrong spot, you don't have time to fix it. Now you feel like you didn't have time to shoot the target also. So you got to be careful when you set them targets. Just like when I said at the Southeast Regional, they had me up on that ridge, Eric did, and that was a horrible spot. It faced east and west. And I had to slow everything down up there so that people could see them good enough to have time to shoot them. It was a hard place to set up on that ridge up there. But we got it done and people didn't really complain about it. It's just when you get in tight quarters, you really got to be careful how you set targets. And you got to make them big so they can see them.
Yeah. Mike, what do you say to those? You brought this up a second ago. What do you say to those lower class shooters that plan on attending an open or a regional or national event or even a world event? What do you say to them? When you go to these tournaments, just plan on knowing that you're going to be shooting big targets or bigger targets?
Yeah, I just tell them, hey, learn, just you're going to have, learn. What did you get out of it? Come back with feedback. Man, Mike, those towers killed me. All right, we can set those. We can explain it to me, I'm fortunate enough to get to some of those shoots, and the whole time I'm looking, not just shooting like, man, that was a really good target. I need to try to duplicate that at my club. I'm going to have a lot of people come back, but, we were talking about this the other night. You think about this, like when we would go to, I remember going to Cedar Creek, M&M, Hopkins as a kid. All right, this was back when you had mail results, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Like you didn't even know who won unless you stayed, right? You got them in the mail, big, thick envelope, and it's like, oh man, Joe Scull shot a 65. What happened to him today? But no, you didn't know until, 2 or 3 days later, right? Sometimes 4 days later, depending on where you lived. What's crazy is we would just shoot Joe's course, and then we would go home. You never heard like, man, that was too hard. That we just shot targets. And then as the game evolved, here came social media, here came the internet, here comes shotgun world. And next thing you know, oh man, that 70 on, that 90 off the tower is ridiculous. And then basically had all this chatter from the internet. You didn't have that back in the day. We just shot and we went home and we came back next week. And I told everybody, we didn't even know who won the week before, really. You forgot about it already. Now, if I ask you right now, who won the Nationals in 2007, would you know? Right? So same thing when social media and the internet came along. I think the target setters took more of a beating. I'd set a course back then and we just set it. And we might talk amongst each other like Joe and, our buddies. But, you agree with that, Joe? You never heard much. You just set the course and
Oh, now they put it on the internet, and there's people in California start chiming in on it, and they don't even know what they're talking about to start with.
I tell everybody today, if I get a young kid, we need them, some of the great target setters, Joe, Rick Hemingway, Neil Chadwick, they're not, 20 years old anymore. So we're trying to get more people interested in it. I tell people, hey, you might not want to go to college. You can make a good living doing this, but A, you better have thick skin. And B, you better be able to take it, right? Because, and people don't realize that, I got a lot of respect for these guys. I always thank the target setter, whether I like their targets or not. I thank them every time because, everybody's got opinions. I might not like them. Joe might love them or vice versa that day. And ease up on these target setters. I look at shooters like, you ever had a bad day shooting? They're like, yeah, man, every other week. I'm like, you don't think a target setter had a bad day, right? He might have had a bad day. Yeah, he's on a different grounds. He might not know the lighting that well. Trust me, we're not doing it for lack of effort. Like Joe said, he's going back in and out. I can't tell you how many times I go back to the course, how many times I lose sleep over it because we're passionate about it and we want people to have a good time. But I tell everyone, all right, come out and work a shoot with us. Work a U.S. Open, work a regional. You'll be like, man, all right, I'm never going to say anything to you guys again because it's a ton of work from start to finish. When everybody else is going home, we're dragging traps, we're picking up batteries, we're loading up buggies. There's something going on. We don't finish, and we're the first ones there. We're the last ones to leave every day. So thank your target setters if you see them, and it's a lot of work. And the target setter has a bad day too. Just like
Joe, how do you know if you set one too hard, or do you ever set one too hard?
pretty much anymore, I got it under control, but I have set a couple a little too stiff back maybe 15, 20 years ago. But anymore, I've turned to go look at it, and, I try to envision myself. Most guys will go there, oh, yeah, that's good with their hands. Well, act like you have a gun and see if you have time to shoot that bird, or if you don't have time to shoot that bird. And I'll set on it overnight, and I'll go, and like Mike says, we live this, we sleep this, we think. I ride down the road, I go, shit, that'd be a good target if I set that off this hill and brought this one up. I got a pair already in my mind for the next shoot I do that I want to do that I haven't seen yet. So we ride down the road, and this comes through our heads. But after you've done it long enough, you pretty much know. You just get a gut feeling if you think it's too hard. And I go back and look at it before I finish, because we always are learning. If you're a target setter and you think you know everything and you're the best target setter out there, you're not. You're the worst. Because if you're not willing to accept somebody else's opinion and don't take it as criticism and go look at that target again before it's thrown, then there's something wrong with you, because somebody else might see something you don't see.
Yeah.
That could be a real problem with that target. So you got to accept that you're not right all the time with it. And you don't know everything, because every time you go to a shoot, you learn something new, whether it's setting a target or, the terrain that you could use, or you shouldn't do it. Because when I first started, I'd go to shoots. I used to shoot a lot of times. The best place to be was after I shot, sit down and eat lunch and listen to what they complained about. Everything they complained about, I made mental notes of it. And I said, I'm not doing that. And some of these guys that are under us, and I give them suggestions. I say, you shouldn't do that because of this. And they're like, even at the Nationals, Neil will go, well, you want to go help him make sure he's all right, do this. I tell him, you need changes to, no, but that's the target I want. I said, it's not going to work. That's the target I want. I said, okay, leave it. Then we go out to vet the course, and he hears the same exact words come out of Neil's mouth that I just told him, and then he changes his target.
Yeah.
But you need to hear it from more than one person sometimes.
You ever just want to walk up and grab somebody's gun and say, let me show you how to shoot this target?
I've done that.
No, I learned, Justin, I'll tell you, like Joe, I think that everybody's like, how'd you learn this? The joke with me is like, man, you mow through a course, you can just roll with it. A couple reasons for that. Like, people that knew more than me when I was coming, I listened to them. I took criticism. Joe would tell me things. Anthony would tell me things. Chuck Frazier would beat me up, stuff like that about certain things. But I was like, yeah, they're right. I wouldn't go, you don't get defensive. It's like, man, they're telling you this to help you. They're not telling you this because they want you to do your job. They're shooters too, right? They want the game to get better. We want to grow the whole sport. So we got to help each other out, just like we do with shooting. If I got a question with a student, I'm struggling with something, I can call another instructor. He'll help me out. We're all friends. I'll call Joe. Hey, what do you think if I did this? I'll call Rick Hemingway, whoever, and I'll ask their opinion. And then we kind of find common ground. That's how we all work together in the industry. And I've seen people get better and better and better over the years. I think every time, I do a shoot, I think we all get better at it. We learn something from that shoot. Nobody's perfect, but like just we're living it. I used to drive down the road with my buddies. We'd be on the way to the shoot. Man, what if we ran a bad 2 up that hill? I mean, we lived it, Now it's like, man, I got to go to bed. I got a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about target setting. I mean, look, Joe's a legend at it, right? He's been doing it forever. Rick Hemingway, all those guys. But, in like the last couple years, I'm very impressed with Eric Dorsey. Guy's phenomenal. He's throwing awesome targets. I'm very impressed with him. Just this year, a recent memory, he set the South Carolina State, and his targets were phenomenal. I mean, they were just awesome. Everything was killable. He just worked you the whole way. I mean, and it was awesome, and I enjoyed it. And Eric's a good, solid guy, and I'm glad to see somebody else, you know what I mean? Because we all know Joe, this one, that one, Mike, but I'm glad to see people coming up, and hopefully we can get a few more guys or even ladies interested in it, whoever. I'm there to help anybody out. Like I'd be a kid working at Joe's Zone 2 shoot, and I did whatever he told me. I wanted to learn from somebody, and that's what I did. I worked for these guys and learned what they did. And now you've developed your own style, with a little bit of theirs and a little bit of this, and now you got your own style of targets,
How do you get if someone's interested in doing this kind of stuff, what do they do? I mean, do you think they need to be a good shooter before they can set good targets?
That's a great question. I think they got to have some knowledge of the game. I mean, if you look at most of, Joe's a shooter. Me and Joe used to travel to shoots together. Rick Hemingway, great shot, been around the game his whole life. Anthony, Anthony's Anthony. That's all we got to say, right? Different people. My background was shooting. But I think, Chuck Frazier really wasn't a shooter. He was strictly a target setter, but he did have a background of shooting, and he just watched and he talked to, and he watched shooters. He used to watch Wendell. Man, I'm watching what Wendell's doing, and he kind of feel out their weaknesses, But I think the best way to do it, like I've got a young man right now that works for me, Brian Quigley. He came up at Quail Creek in the Young Guns program. He lives and dies target setting. That's all he wants to learn. I mean, he literally came to work for me to learn target setting. He's going to be great at it. I've already got him kind of cut loose. The easiest way, I'll go, hey, quick, go set the targets. I don't go near him. A, I don't want to make him nervous, right? And B, I want him to do it like I'm not there. Then after he sets the targets, I go out with him like, that one could use a little more dome. That's what, maybe you could slow that bird down. We'll go through 14 stations and I'll go, man, they're awesome. We might tweak 2 things. That's the best way to learn. I mean, that's what'd you do, Joe? I just did it. Like I was working at Pintail Point as a kid, and we would just move traps because we wanted to shoot something different. Just do the job and then fail at it, succeed at it, fail again, and learn from your mistakes, like anything else.
When you say, all right, so say you set a target, a course, and somebody shoots 100 on it, are you thinking to yourself, "Dang, I didn't want that to happen," or?
No, there's times I want it to happen. Because you got take the Nationals, for example. That starts on a Saturday. You got a target out there that I set, and everybody's having problems with it. That 42-yard target by Sunday is 52 yards. By Tuesday, when the next people are shooting, it's 62 yards. It's ridiculous. And then by the time you get to the 4-day event, it's at 82 yards. And no, it's impossible to hit. It's impossible, and you get these lower scores for a ways, and then the momentum comes in, and the more talented shooters start shooting, and all of a sudden you'll see a 73 out of 75. Then you'll see a 74, and you might get Radulovic or Anthony shoot a 75 on it. I'm fine with that. That's great. You know why? Because it shows that there's nothing wrong with the targets. It kind of backs up what target setting I did when that happens.
Yeah.
Zach has run 2 courses on me.
Well, he's very capable, for sure.
Zach has never ran a course on me. Just saying that, no big deal.
Zach has run 2 courses. You never ran anything I said, Mike.
No, that is a fact. If my kryptonite's Joe Scull. Yep.
He used to not come sometimes. He's so mad.
Back in the day, he had mine. No, he still does, but I love him. What can you do? It gives me something to strive for.
Tell me something really funny that has happened while setting a course.
Man, I got one. I mean, I don't know if I should share this on air, but I got one. Okay. So, and again, I'm probably, I don't know the age, but I was definitely not supposed to be drinking alcohol, and I don't drink now anyway, so it doesn't matter. But and Joe knows him very well. My buddy Brian Palmer, he manages Vero Beach in Florida, and we had a Vintagers Cup, and our boss was another guy, Ben Wise at the time, and we got kind of behind. He goes, "Hey man, he trusted us." He goes, "Guys, you got to set the front half of this course, for these. Now these are Vintagers, right? Side by side shooters." He goes, "Light to moderate. I mean, they need to be visible, slow, whatever." So we're like, all right, man, we got it. We're all excited. I mean, we maybe are 17. I don't know. So we throw all the tools in the back of the workhorse, and we go by these Canadian guys, and they're like, "Hey, you want a Labatt Blue?" What are you going to say? I mean, it's hot. It's like 95. Yeah, man, give us one. So we go by, we drink the beer on the way, we chuck it. And again, don't listen to this, kids at home. This was us being funny, but I got to share it. Chuck it in, we go by, we leave something, we go back and get us, they give us another beer. Long story short, we set the targets. Nobody got hurt. It's after hours. Next morning, we get there, and here's the radio. It's Ben Wise. What in God's? I mean, he's going off on the radio. First station, we got about a 55-yard trap shot, about a 70-yard incomer, right? He's going, 50-yard teals. And, the whole front half of the course is you got to shoot with like full chokes. And my buddy Palmer gets on the radio, goes, Ben, they're old side-by-sides. They're all full chokes. They'll be fine. Puts the radio down. He basically tells us to get out there right now. And yeah, we had to do a lot of tweaking. We were sweating by the time they started, but yeah, it was bad. That's the funniest thing I've ever had. We haven't done that since, but that was a good day and a bad day that morning because we had to work extra hard. But
I'm really sitting here trying to think of something. The one thing I did that was funny, I did to Rod Scheider, who owns Lincoln. We were doing PA state shoot. Well, I overlaid all these traps and everything. So we're just getting ready to start. So just as we get ready to start, I go, Rod, station 4, station 6, station 9, station 12. And he's like going like this, which way to go? Like there's a problem. I said, and he's freaking out. And then I go, they're all good. Right. Well, he was so pissed at me all day. He's like, you son of a bitch, but I had he's so anal with his machines. He didn't know which way to go, which one to go to first.
So as far as target setting is concerned, we just talked about earlier how they've changed from then till now. How do you see it moving forward? Do you see it changing much more, or is there much more that you can change with it?
That's a good question. It's, I think somewhere down the line, something will probably come along to make it a little more interesting. Right now, adding that 70 target in the beginning, we were all kind of like, what do we want that for? We had a 60 before. Nobody liked the 60. But once we got the 70 in the motion and you learned how to throw it and use it in good ways where it was a good target to throw, I think that changed the game a little. You can beat a lot of people with that 70 target because you said it at 30 yards, they shoot it thinking they're shooting it at 50 yards. Yeah. Most of these shooters, and they shoot in front of it more than anything. So what are we going to come up with next? We got so many different variety of targets. I don't know what we're going to do, whether we change the way we shoot or something, change the format for shooting. But right now, I think we got all the bases covered. I think it's really, really good compared to back in the day. Yeah. It's really challenging. It's exciting. It's fun. You got the creativity is of the target setter. It's up to him to make it more interesting, as far as I'm concerned. And I think we got a lot of guys out there like Mike and May and Rick and Neil. We're all like creative. I mean, you go to nationals, Neil will throw a parkour with all rabbits. He'll have it going over a skeleton. He'll have it going through a hole, things like that. And I think that's what makes the game interesting.
Yeah, I think, target setting is pretty good at the moment. I think that, like Joseph, what other things can you do to, you have a blank canvas like an artist. You have a blank canvas when you go out there. You might have a tight quarter or bad sunlight or bad hole, but you literally, nobody can tell you what you can and cannot do. You're owning it once you set it, so that's what I like about target setting. It's like, man, I don't have to throw targets through a hoop like skeet, right? That trap target doesn't have to be that perfect height. I can throw a rabbit going away, or I can throw a rabbit coming in. I can jump a rabbit off a ramp, right? Stuff like that. But I think that, I think the target setting now is better than ever because I've kind of watched the game from not as long as Joe, because I'm not that old, but kind of go, through different stages. But we're looking at another thing too that we talk about, the shooters now. Look at the talent out there. If we would have set targets like this 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, you'd have like an 80. It would win the shoot. Now you got a guy like Joseph, somebody's going to go out there and shoot a big score. So that question you asked, like if somebody shoots 100, I remember I set a Gator Cup one year. And I had a pretty stout course, and Gibbon Miles shot 100. What did I do? I went up and shook Gibbon's hand because, you earned it. I didn't do anything wrong. It spread out perfect, right? If a guy shoots 100 on me, me and Joe have a mutual friend, Steve Evanson. He shot 100 on me one time at Nemacolin, and the next high score was a 92. I just shook his hand. That's amazing to me. I'm like, man, you earned every bit of that. So when somebody shoots 100, I shake their hand. I'm like, you earned it, because I felt like I gave it all I had, and they just had a perfect day. I think down the road, we're going to have to look at some point, and this is a whole nother subject, but who's a recreational shooter, which is the majority of the game, right? That's how we all make a living. We want shooters to shoot, but then we'll have to look at, maybe shooters are going to get so good, whatever me or Joe, whoever does, there are going to be days to appease the whole crowd. We're going to have big scores, just nature of the game. But maybe one day we have a club or something where everybody's like, man, I want all crazy, hard, different targets. It might only be 50 people, but one day we might have something like that. Like, hey, we're going to shoot, this competition. And, my opinion, like Joe's green course at the Nationals, my personal opinion, I wish 2 courses were like that, not just one. That's all. I think 2 should be for everybody. I agree, but I wish we had 2 courses like Joe's. I'm not saying Joe, maybe Jason Minke could have set one and Joe set one, of that caliber. I just wish there was 2 of them, because like my guys from South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, the people we know, they loved it. They were like, man, that's shooting right there. I mean, the funny part, I had a horrible Nationals main event, struggling with gun fit, finally got a new stock made, but I shot Joe's course the highest. I shot it the best. I mean, I was in the top tier on his course because I was like excited. Like it made me like, man, this is awesome. Like right when I got to station 1, I'm like, that teal is awesome, but I'm going to hit it. Right. And then I go to the next one. That pair is great, but I'm going to shoot them quick. Like he made me want to shoot, where the other course, I'm like, oh man, I've shot that 2 million times. Wrong attitude, right? That's shame on me. I should look at every target 10 to 50 to 100 yards and say, I got to give it the same attention. But just Joe's course excited me. Like it got me anxious to shoot. So my personal opinion, I wish there were 2. I've talked to D shooters. See, they had a ball on that course because we hit a lot, Mike, but we learned a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
where y'all setting next?
I'm setting Amelia next weekend, and then another one in February. Then I'm setting Jack Link, and then Florida Challenge in February.
Yeah, my next big one will be Gator Cup. Gator Cup came to South Carolina this year. And what's neat, I went over there about 3 or 4 months ago with Rick. And, like from the Open, we went across the street and we shot the FTAS and stuff at the Open. And we're just riding there. I said, Rick, I know you're Mr. Innovator and you don't mind spending money. I said, so every main event we've ever shot at Backwoods, we've shot green and orange. He goes, yeah. I said, let's put a brand new course in for the Gator Cup main event. And I want to set it. He goes, pick it out. So I picked this. You'll go like where the FTAS was. Instead of going left, you'll go right. And we've made a brand new course with a lot of trees and wide open field. And what'll be neat, this first Gator Cup, we're going to have a piece of grounds that nobody has an advantage on. It's brand new. One of the courses will be brand new. And we're going to actually open up the Thursday prelim. So if you're not signed up for that, you can kind of get the gist of it, see the layout. And then as the Friday prelims go along, I'm going to be setting the main on it, but we're looking forward to that. It'll be a brand new piece of ground. Nobody's ever shot on it ever. Not a FTAS event, not a 5-stand event. Nobody has shot it. So we're looking forward to that. Just to do something different.
Yeah. And if they're not on the waiting list, I think that shoot's full. If you're not on a waiting list, you better get on it because it's
a good time.
And I think Jack Links is full too, isn't it?
Yeah, Jack Links is packed. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're not on that waiting list and you want to go to one of those shoots, you better go and get on it while you can. And, you'll have some people drop out to where you can go, but you got to be on the list first. But, guys, I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, my joke with I'll send you with one last joke, and Doug Vine's listening to this. Do you know why Doug Vine put Sleepy Joe on that red course?
Why?
Because Doug can't set targets in a course that tight. He's got to use a man with skill. He's going to kill me later for that, but he's got to put Joe there. I used to have to set both of them. Man, he had to hire Sleepy Joe to get it done. So I'll just leave it at that. I used to set both of them. I'm just saying. So,
he'll be calling you.
Oh, yeah. I'll be ready for him. Always good.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you.
All right, Justin.